Yeah. All right, there we go. It started recording. Perfect.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to have up the chapter outlines, and we'll.
Oh, okay.
The way I did it in the last review is we just went over them line by line.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have something in the notes, feel free to feel free to speak up, especially since it's just two of us.
It's just
Let's see. Share screen. Window. Chapter 5 outline. Okay. Perfect. So we are starting with the chapters covered in the exam are 5, 6, 7, and 11, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's 5, 6, 7, and 11. That threw me off this week. I was like, wait, or last week, I was like, wait, where's 11? We're on 8. What's happening here? And then I was like, oh, duh.
Yeah. But I mean, I think 11 fits in pretty well. So.
Oh, yeah, it does.
All right. So to get started off, sorry, I'm gonna be eating while we do this.
No, you're fine. I know. I was snacking, and I was like, I think I'm done snacking.
All right. So for initial impression formation or person perception, I think that's like forming our first impressions of other people. As far as accuracy, from what I remember reading, it said that our impressions tend to be fairly accurate.
Yes.
And nonverbal behavior is just like sort of body language, facial expression, how a person positions themselves in reference to you, what sort of posture they take.
Yeah, just the personal distance between the people, body touching, all the real nonverbal, that kind of behavior.
I'm not sure what she wanted us to have with negative info, but I think, I mean, I'm just thinking like what might contribute to a negative impression. I think like threatening posture, a person appears unknown to us or something.
I think we can see from like a distinct facial pattern, like a facial features doing that, because you could tell you walk up to somebody with pursed lips, you can tell that they're not going to be genuinely not very, very nice, very happy to see you. I think that's a big indicator. Stance is a good indicator. People cross their arms, they're super closed off.
I actually do have this one down. It's any behavior that indicates a person may be negative or threatening to us. So yeah, pretty simple. Detecting deception. We think we are better at it than we actually are.
Yes, I was like, oh, are we? Sometimes I feel like I'm good at it. And then I read that, I was like, oh, never mind.
Especially because we tend to look for the wrong things.
Right.
And people who think that they are good at lying, or people who think that they are good at detecting liars, are usually worse at detecting deception.
Yes.
But that it is easier to deceive when we are trying to cover up something relatively trivial versus something that's more that's a more important lie, like an affair. And people are able to control their facial expressions better than their body language when engaging in deception.
Yes.
Averaging traits. Do you want to tell me what you have for averaging traits? Do you remember reading about that?
Yeah, that's the combining traits, right? Because I was like, I have combining. I've got that we'll listen to traits and we'll rate them in a way. We will figure out what's important to us and what's not important to us, such as you've got somebody you might think smart, serious, kind of sad. You kind of rate those and how you want them to. If you take kind more important than being smart, things like that. So we'll rate them to figure out what we like better in a person. 5 is very positive, -5 is negative, very negative. And then what else do I have here? And then we can also like add traits together, like very moderate traits together, and we can combine them, and we'll change an average of how we feel. So that's what I got from that.
I think the thing that I remembered most from that was that if you're trying to get somebody to like you, or like if you're setting, like, say a friend, like if you're setting up two friends on a blind date and you want one of them to be impressed with the other, that you should share a few really good traits about them rather than tossing in traits that might be average, because they are like traits that are not like thrilling to the other person would more dilute their expectations than make them excited, because it sort of averages out.
Yeah, it's like that's the central traits, right? Like we want to share the central traits first.
My computer came unplugged. Yeah. So the central traits, they can be either good or bad. Whereas central traits are just the ones that have a very strong influence on our impression of other people, like the warm and cold.
Okay. So they would be a little more different. A little different. Sorry.
The primacy and recency effects. I mean, primacy is just the information we get first tends to stick with us.
Yes.
First impressions really do matter. And the recency effect can cause us to value more recent information than information we received previously, but that is less common.
Yes. And then if we have assimilation, we can't really change our ways. It's very much we're in our ways now. We know them. We know this is what we want, and it's difficult to change.
Yeah, it's that anchoring and adjustment again. And the halo effect. Cognitive misers. I love that. Is that our brains just want to conserve energy, like what I'm doing my paper on, like that. They tend to stick with. We tend to pay more attention to information that comes first, than spend energy taking in all of the information there is to understand. Again. And the halo effect is thinking of someone positively based on our initial perception of based on our initial good perception of them. So if somebody makes a good impression, like we may have a hard time seeing their faults.
Right. Yeah, you meet somebody and you're like, oh, they're great. And other people are like, we don't see their faults right away. We want for them to be good. We want to see that.
Yep. Causal attribution, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's determining what caused something, in this case, what caused a behavior. Where personal attribution is more like this person did this, this person did this bad thing because they're a bad person. That's a more personal, internal attribution, whereas situational is this person did a bad thing because they were in a bad situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. Yeah, it does. Sorry. Yes. I'm reading my notes at the same time as you're talking to make sure like I'm getting what you're saying as well. So I understand.
And they're not mutually exclusive. We can think that somebody did something both because they're we can think somebody did a good thing because they're a good person and because of the situation that they were in. It's not one or the other. It can be a mixture of both.
It's so funny. I'm in theories right now, and I'm doing Skinner, and he thinks that there's you're not a good person. You are into your environment, whatever your environment feeds. It's just so fun. I've got to keep them so separate because I'm like, oh wait, I'm like, no, wrong class.
I love Skinner. Operating conditioning is so interesting.
Yes, I'm just getting through his chapter, and I'm like, I love this. I need to buy his books like now, and I need to read them all. I love it. I'm obsessed. I loved it. He seems to be. I'm just getting through operant conditioning, so I'm getting there. But I'm really enjoying what he thinks and how he thinks. So it's just kind of funny that I have to be sure to keep things so split apart because I'm like, wait, getting a mixed up.
Oh yeah.
Like, ooh, it's two
All
very similar.
So the covariation principle states that a behavior is more likely to have been caused by a situation if that behavior stays the same across in that same situation.
This is where I got a little confused.
So there are 3 types of covariance. The consensus is that, like, so the covariation principle, I remember it as like I cry in Pixar movies. So what causes me to cry in Pixar when I'm watching a Pixar movie? The consensus covariation would be, well, everyone cries in Pixar movies. So of course the Pixar movie is causing Dalton to cry. The consistency covariation is Dalton cries every time he watches a Pixar movie. So it's the Pixar movie that causes Dalton to cry. And the what was the other one? And the distinctiveness is that Dalton only cries when he watches Pixar movies, and he cries in no other situation. So Pixar movies are the cause of me crying.
Okay.
So consensus is when everybody does it. Then we think, okay, that it caused the behavior. Distinctiveness is when that is the only time we exhibit that behavior. And consistency is when we do that behavior every time we're in that situation. Hi, Linnea.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
No problem. We just went over the covariation principle.
Okay, let me try to get caught up here. Figure out where we are.
We're in the second section, or the second paragraph of the first page of the review.
Okay.
So now we're getting to Wiener's attributions for success and failure.
Okay. Let's see that. Let me find it in my notes.
Okay.
You guys can just keep going. Okay. I'm ready, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Did you say you had it, Victoria?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My cat is tormenting me at the moment.
No,
Sorry.
no worries. My dog's crazy in the background, so.
My cat is a male cat, and they say that they are much more attached to their owners, and that is a very true statement. And he is a terror, but he doesn't want the door closed. But if I close the door and he's out of it, he'll sit there and smack on it while he's trying to break into the room. But yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. That was my mix up during this chapter.
What was?
That was the covariation. That was where I was having the mix up in this chapter. So I do appreciate you breaking that down for me.
No problem. The book also goes over. It gives examples of each of those. It just uses the wedding as an example.
Yes.
So let's see. For Wiener's attributions, I have that Bernard Wiener found that success or failure can be attributed to personal or situational causes, and that those causes can be either stable or unstable. So, like for example, if someone we know is in a bad place financially, if we attribute that to like an internal stable, if we attribute that to an internal stable causation, then that's like their personal ability. They're just bad with money. If we attribute it to an external unstable causation, that's like, it's really difficult. So it's just hard to manage money well. If we, internal unstable would be, they lack motivation. Like, so they're in a bad place financially because they didn't want to budget. And external unstable is luck. So like, oh, they had some bad luck. So yeah, the success or failure is, I have a little diagram of it. It's like it's let me see if can I draw or something? Trying to see if there's like a little whiteboard. Wow, I don't see anything. Okay. Well, it's in the textbook. Let me see if I can, unless you guys are good on that. Are you guys confused? Do you want me to pull it up?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay too, I think.
Okay. Cool. Then we can move on from Wiener's attribution for success failure. Does somebody want to go over biases and attribution?
Let me see. I have, I think this is where I didn't really have it in order. I kind of just went through the book.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first thing I have is fundamental attribution error.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the first bullet.
Okay, cool. All right. So that's when we tend to overestimate the role of person factors and overlook the impact of situations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Like,
of course,
they're driving crazy because they're a bad driver, not because they're taking their wife to the hospital.
Yeah, right. That's a good example. And then I've got correspondence bias occurs when we attribute behaviors to people's internal characteristics, even in heavily constrained situations. And then I have a bunch of just like little notes that I took from that. So I changed my note taking from handwriting to like copying and pasting onto a Word document. And that was a lot faster. And so this is where I was handwriting. So I've just got a bunch of kind of my own personal little notes here. So if someone else wants to do that.
One thing I was a little confused about the difference between fundamental attribution error and correspondence bias. And so I looked into it a little bit more, and what I found is that correspondence bias, they're both similar in that we are attributing an action to saying that this person did that thing because this person did that bad thing because they're a bad person. But fundamental attribution error is when we are disregarding situational factors, and correspondence bias is more when we're like just saying, wait. So yeah, okay. So fundamental attribution error, that would be like if we saw somebody driving crazy and
we just say they're driving crazy, but we don't know really if they are bad drivers or if we're just assuming.
Or like say it's raining and we don't think, oh, they might not be able to drive well in the rain.
Yeah.
But correspondence bias is where we, or no, is it the other way around? So what I have written down next to them is fundamental attribution error ignores situational factors, and correspondence bias directly connects behavior to stable personality traits.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Here
all I know is those two are a little similar.
I've got the textbook open. So one of the examples in one demonstration of fundamental attribution error, Participants read a brief story about a professor who had selected 2 student volunteers to come up in front of a class to participate in the trivia game. The students were described as having been randomly assigned. Constances, this is a very long. Quizmaster was asked to generate 5 questions from the knowledge. I'm trying to find one where it's like a little paragraph, not so. Hold on. No, wait. Oh, crap. No, I'm confused. I thought I had it. If you think about the setup, you'll notice the professor has created a situation that can have a big influence. Joe, the quizmaster, has a huge advantage because he got to choose the questions. As a result, the questions are hard for the contestant to answer, but the participants realize that the situation was the cause of the outcome. So situation, outcome. I'm guessing.
For correspondence
Yes.
bias? Okay.
No,
Fundamental. Okay.
fundamental.
So what I'm seeing is that in essence, fundamental attribution error is a specific type of correspondence bias. Both concepts simulate how often we misjudge the reasons behind others' actions, leaning more towards personal traits rather than situational influence. So I think, yeah. So fundamental attribution is a type of correspondence bias.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, those two are confusing.
Yeah, those are.
Let's move on to actor-observer bias or difference.
We tend to make more personal attributions for the behavior of others than we do for ourselves, and make more situational attributions for our own behavior than for the behavior of others. So like an example, we tend to think others are shy, quiet, etc. But when it comes to us, we like to say, oh, well, it depends on the situation. I might be that way in this situation, but and then there was like a little quiz we could take, and it was funny because I definitely said like, oh, this person is XYZ. And then I said, well, me, I'm, it depends on the situation, how I am. And so it was spot on for me. I guess I do that.
Well, and it makes sense that we would do that because we have more context for our
exactly. Yeah.
But we don't think, wait, these other people also have as much context for their actions. Our brains just don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that made a lot of sense to me. I was like, oh, okay, I get that. Because I do that. So I could relate that to, just doing that. That was fine.
And let's see, self-serving attributions or bias, I think, are just attributions that we make to self-enhance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. We want to make ourselves better. We want to make ourselves better. We're going to say we're this, we're going to say we're that too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
To give like that.
I didn't do this community service because it was court ordered. I did it because I'm such a selfless person.
Exactly. When in reality, guys, come on now.
Yeah,
that one is pretty.
Let's see. Ultimate attribution bias, or group serving bias, is the tendency to make internal attributions about our in-groups successes and external attributions about their setbacks and vice versa.
So it's very similar to self-serving when it comes to the ultimate attribution, because we're, again, projecting these great things, great, what I can't get my word right, sorry. These great attributions to ourselves, but we're also now sending them over to our group, and we're making our group seem like it's this great thing and we're great and everything like that. That's what I understood from.
I think about like big sports fans who, like, if they win a game, they're like, oh, our team is just that good. Versus if another team beats their team, they say, oh, they just got lucky.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then group attribution error is about different groups and us making generalizations about them. We don't even know them. We've just seen observations. We haven't done anything, right?
Well, and it's based on the behavior of like a single individual of that out group. So like I think that's where like racist stereotypes can arise.
Yes. That's definitely, one small group, we see something and everybody's like, oh, that's because they're whatever, they're this, they're that. Women drivers, all women are bad drivers because you've seen 2 of them be bad drivers. So now we're all bad drivers.
I mean, it can also be positive though. So like, oh, I know this person who's a firefighter and he's nice. So all firefighters are nice.
Yeah.
Right.
It can go either way.
Yeah. Let's see.
I put down trait ascription bias. I don't know if we needed to have it, but I don't know. Sometimes I felt like she threw a couple like extra things in there on the exam.
Go ahead with that.
I have that one down there too.
I do too.
A tendency for people to view their own personality, beliefs, and behaviors more variable than those of other personal attributions, and they're made spontaneously.
Like, why can't everyone be as open-minded as I am?
Right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We again very into that self-serving where we think we're open-minded and we're kind and we're this and we will make ourselves seem better. Kind of all falls.
It doesn't necessarily mean that your traits aren't as variable as aren't as variable as other people's. They could be more variable. It's just that everyone thinks that they are more variable than others.
Right. Okay. And then victim blaming bias is pretty, just world hypothesis was very like the world is fundamentally just you get what you get.
That things happen. It's because it's for a reason. You did something to cause those bad things to happen to you.
Exactly. Right. This is your fault.
And the side of that when you're applying it to yourself is the defensive attribution. It's like, no, I didn't get mugged, even though that guy held me at knife point and took my money. Like, I wouldn't get mugged. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You're like in denial because you don't want to be, you don't want to see yourself as the victim.
Right.
Yeah, that all makes.
So that is just world hypothesis and defensive attribution. Individual and cultural differences. Cognitive accessibility plays a big role in how we perceive others and shapes the attitudes we form about them. A person who's interested in fashion would be likely to notice a person's aesthetic first, but an athlete may notice another person's physique or skill first.
Yes. That makes sense. I get it. That makes sense.
I like need for cognition. I'm somebody who has a high need for cognition. The tendency to think carefully and fully about our experiences, including social situations. People with a strong need for cognition tend to process information very thoughtfully and make more causal attributions. But people without a strong need for cognition may take more situational factors into account when considering the behavior of others.
Yeah, I've got that.
There's some evidence that people higher need for cognition may take more situational factors into account when considering the behavior. Okay, yeah. No, I already said that. So people with a higher need for cognition tend to be more tolerant rather than punitive about people in stigmatized groups.
I have that too.
Who's got entity versus incremental theorists?
Okay.
I've got it.
Oh,
you can go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry. I just okay. So entity theorists I have who tend to believe that people's traits are fundamentally stable and incapable of change. So I feel like that's very, you're kind, you will always be kind. That's never going to change. Like you're incapable of changing, or you're mean, you're a bully. That's never changing.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And incremental is obviously the opposite of that, where we believe that personalities change a lot of the time, and we're therefore more likely to make situational attributions for events. So, somebody could get better. They had a bad years, and then they've changed, and they're no longer a cheater. Once a cheater, not this time.
I've been working on myself.
I'm working on myself. I've gone to therapy, guys.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well explained. Attributional style. Let's see, what does it say there?
Why don't I have?
Attributional style refers to the type of attributions that we tend to make for events that occur to us. These attributions can be internal, external, stable, unstable, global, or specific. Where internal state people who have a more positive attributional style tend to face negative events that happen to them. So like if I got in a car crash and I have a positive attributional style, I would tend to make an external, unstable, specific attribution where it's external, it wasn't my fault, it's unstable, it doesn't happen that frequently, and specific where like it was this one freak accident that happened to me. But if I have a negative attributional style, I would attribute it more to internal, stable, and global attributions. I got into a car crash because I'm a bad driver. I will always be a bad driver, and I always get into car crashes. Internal, stable, global.
Yes. So
Okay.
positive is stable and global, and then negative is unstable and
no. So positive is so for negative events that occur to you, positive is external, unstable, specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Negative is internal, stable, and global.
Interesting. Oh, got it. Okay. I have the negative. I don't know why I don't have positive. That's weird.
Yeah.
Great.
I have written down like internal is I failed because I'm no good. Stable, I always fail. Global, I fail at everything.
Yeah.
So stable can be either good or bad, right? That's what
I like stable. It can be positive or negative. It depends on what type of event you're attributing you're attributing the stability to. Like if it's a positive event that you're seeing as stable, then stable would be a positive attribution. But if it's a negative event that you see as stable, you're seeing that negative event as something that's not going to change. So you have a pessimistic view of it. You've got a negative attributional style.
Okay.
So I like you can also think about it as a positive attributional style is an optimist, and negative attributional is a pessimist.
Pessimist, yeah.
I have down with negative attribution styles. There's also a learned helplessness as well.
Yeah, go ahead with that.
Okay, so with learned helplessness, we continually make external, stable, and global attributions for their behavior. Are said to be experiencing learned helplessness. So I feel like that's very much a sorry, my thoughts just I'm so sorry. I feel like that's pretty much it. We make ourselves helpless. We think these things about ourselves, so we've decided that's who we are. We are bad. We'll always fail. We'll always fail at everything.
I thought that the experiment that they highlighted as an example for that was very sad and very poignant, where they kept dogs on an electrified floor. And when they and they kept a barrier up that prevented the dogs from moving to a non-electrified floor. And even when they removed the barriers, the dogs had become so used to the shocks that they wouldn't go to the floor that wasn't electrified. They had just learned, this is where I am. Like this suffering is where I'm at, and I'm going to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the learned helplessness.
Yes.
Ugh.
I can think of examples of
I
people.
want to look at dog.
I'm like saying, I'm like, I got a few people who act like that, but you know,
I know. I'm thinking like I know a few people like that.
I'll stay here and I'm doing this. I'm like, I have a personal example of this.
Yeah, I know exactly.
sometimes I'm like, damn, is this me? Am I doing something?
Yeah.
The good thing is that most people have positive attributional styles. The examples I have down for that is like, if I fail at something, I failed because the task is difficult. That's external. And that again goes back to Wiener's attributions. So like that's a stable external is I failed because it's difficult. I will do better next time. My failure is unstable. I failed in this domain, but I'm good at other things. So that was specific. Sorry, specific is positive. I failed this one time, but I don't always fail.
Yeah.
I succeeded at other things. So sorry, I was wrong on that.
No, that makes sense, definitely.
And then we have the, learned helplessness for negative, and then for positive, we have the unrealistic optimism, the tendency to be overly positive about the likelihood that negative things will occur to us, and we will be able to effectively cope with them if they do. We can set ourselves up for failure because we think, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then when we fail, we are more up for depression when things do not work out as we had hoped. So I have that down.
The example I have for that one is an overconfidence in one's ability to drive while intoxicated.
Yeah. You hear that. You actually hear that a lot. I can drive. It's fine, guys.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good to drive when I'm a little buzzed. Like,
yeah, not good. You can still get a DUI.
And for self-handicapping, I have that it's when we make statements or engage in behaviors that help us create a convenient external attribution because we're expecting to fail a task. Men tend to engage in self-handicapping more than women. And people who report that they self-handicap tend to show lower life satisfaction, less competence, poorer moods, less interest in their jobs, and greater substance abuse. And the cultural differences, I have that individualists tend to ascribe a lot more internal, stable attributions, and collectivists tend to ascribe more external, unstable ones. Like if somebody, they were talking about how a Chinese student in the United States was reported on after he did a shooting at his college, and in the United States, they were saying he was a loner, he was depressed, he was mentally unstable. Whereas in the Chinese, in Chinese language media, they were talking about the prevalence of guns in the United States, the lack of guardrails, those sorts of things. They were making more social, more external attributions.
Right. I remember that.
So, any last thoughts on chapter 5 before we move on?
No, I think
that was good.
I'm good.
All right, we are making good time. Let me grab chapter 6. Oh, that's my camera. Okay. Chapter 6, social influence and conformity. Who wants to start us off?
Sure, I will. First thing I've got is social influence. Defined as the influence of other people in our everyday thoughts, feelings, and on or in. I don't know why I wrote on. Defined as the influence of other people on our everyday thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And then conformity, the change in beliefs, opinions, and behaviors as a result of our perceptions about what other people believe or do. I've got leadership, the ability. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I have that. So shifts in our attitudes and behaviors to conform around us are often spontaneous, automatic, and even subtle. Like if you start to like the same type of music as your roommate, or adopting like mannerisms within a group of close friends.
Okay, yeah, mannerisms with close friends. That's good.
Yeah, like I think of like my like little phrases and behaviors I picked up from my friend group. Like when we see each other, hey girly, like
Yeah.
Yes. Or I've got a friend who says tea all the time, like, give me the tea. So now that's my, like, all right, what's the tea today? So yes,
yeah.
we do pick up those little things throughout friendship groups.
And like and within relationships too, like
yes.
It says it's changed in a passive way, so I guess like we don't even realize we're doing it, right?
Yeah, we just tend to we tend to conform within
Okay.
within our social groups.
Gotcha. So that's conformity, not social influence.
Well, social influence drives conformity.
Okay, social influence.
Where social influence is the influence other people have on the way we think and act.
Okay.
And so conformity and spontaneous conformity fall under social influence. Is that what
so it's that conformity in most cases largely happens spontaneously over time in a group.
Okay.
So like most of the time when you're conforming to group norms, it's just something that you do automatically. You don't really think about it. You just start like saying things the way your friends say them, or things like that.
Okay.
Let's see. Informational social influence is the change in opinions or behavior that occurs when we conform to people who we believe have accurate information.
Right.
So like listening to science communicators, or like that could be a positive example, or a negative example could be like listening to conspiracy theorists.
Yes.
Because you believe that they have accurate information. Like you could follow correct information or incorrect information based on your perception of a person. Accuracy, social comparison, private. So I have social comparison is the process of comparing our opinions with those of others to gain an accurate appraisal of the validity of our opinions or behavior. So we're checking to see if other people act and think the same way that we do.
This is very much wanting to like fit in, right? Kind of like the fit in, you doing something to fit in with the other group. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
And then private acceptance is the real change of the opinions on the part of the individual.
As opposed to public compliance, which is just where we I mean, where we just pretend that we think the same way that other people do to fit in. But privately we may disagree, or we may disagree. And that can be done with beliefs as well as actions that are social norms, which are socially accepted beliefs about what we do or should do in particular contexts. Let's see. Majority and minority influence are pretty self-explanatory. Just, does the larger group or the smaller group have influence? It's usually the majority.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Larger. Yeah. I put in there the example of Sharif using a perceptual phenomenon known as the autokinetic effect to study the outcomes of conformity on the development of group norms.
Do you want to explain Sharif's experiment?
Yeah, sure. So the autokinetic effect is caused by the rapid small movement of our eyes that occur as we view objects that allow us to focus on stimuli in our environment. However, when individuals are placed in a dark room that contains only a single small stationary pinpoint of light, these eye movements produce an unusual effect for the perceiver. They make the point of light appear to move. Some participants first made their judgments alone. Sharif found that although each participant who was tested alone made estimates that were within a relatively narrow range, as if they had their own individual norm, there were wide variations in the size of these judgments among the different participants. He also found that when individuals who initially had made very different estimates were placed in groups along with one or two other individuals, in which all the group members gave their responses on each trial aloud, each time in a different random order, the initial differences in judgments among the participants began to disappear, such that the group members eventually made similar judgments. So they just started kind of copying each other. Like, it's funny, my son will be at school and like they'll be drawing something and then all the kids end up drawing the same thing, just different versions of it. And I'm like, oh, is that because they were looking at each other and they're like, oh, I'm going to draw this now?
Yes,
So,
that's definitely.
So I think
that
the big takeaway from that is that when we're in groups, our views, beliefs, and opinions tend to converge.
Yeah. Good one.
Let's see. Thank you for. Oh, I have Ash's line study.
Okay.
So, what Ash did is he wanted to see how social influence would affect people's responses when there was a clear, objective, correct answer. Because with the autokinetic effect, there wasn't a correct answer. So he brought in participants and had them sit in a semicircle with a bunch of actors, and he would show them cards with lines on them. And he, on one of the cards, had a length of the line that he wanted them to match with the lines on another card. And he would, and the lines were obviously of different lengths. I think that they were 2 inches difference. So that's pretty big difference. And the participant was always seated second to 2 from the end, and they would answer in sequential order. And he found that when his actors identified the incorrect line, most of them identified the incorrect line, that they were asked to lie or to identify the incorrect line 11 or sorry, hold on.
So it was like the participants' answer changed, right? Because they were lying.
To see if the participant would agree with
Would agree with them, right?
Conform. Yeah.
like this shorter line is actually the line, but it's not.
Yeah.
And
they
found
right.
that
They did.
37% of the total responses conformed with the actors' false responses. However, while 5% of the participants conformed for each of the trials where the actors were saying the incorrect line, 24% of the participants never conformed.
Yeah.
So while conforming does happen, it is a choice.
Yeah, it's not an absolute, right?
No, yeah, you're not having,
Especially when there's a clear objective wrong in
exactly.
attitude. Like I think about people who kept Jews safe during Nazi Germany.
Right.
Some people chose not to conform.
right.
Exactly.
That's them choosing. You can.
Social determinants.
Yeah. So we didn't really need to know anything too much on minority influence, right?
No, it's just that
I have the definition.
when the minority group has social influence over you.
Okay,
Yeah, that's all I have too.
But I think by virtue of them being the smaller group, like, hey, like this person's disagreeing with everyone, so they must be onto something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be minority influence.
Okay. I was trying to make sure.
So situational determinants, they're just any outside influence or anything that might change the likelihood of conforming to a situation. And do you guys want to? Does somebody want to go over group size and social impact?
Okay. So I have size of majority increases conformity regardless of rather the conformity. My goodness, I write my notes, so sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. I apologize.
No,
it's okay.
Like, wait,
Totally
hold on,
okay.
what does that word say? Increases conformity regardless of whether the conformity is informational or normal. Yeah, I can't read my damn handwriting. Let me go.
Yeah, normative. Yep.
I thought that's what I said. I was like, is that what I wrote? My goodness. And then social impact is the increase in the amount of conformity that is produced by adding new members to the majority group. So that is okay, maybe I'm a little lost on that one. Just not much, but just like
no, you have it mostly. I just want to add that social impact is greater the fewer members you have in the group. So like if it starts out as a small group, like if you have a group of 3 people who are doing the same thing, a 4th person joining will have a large social impact. But a 5th person joining will have maybe less social impact than the 4th, the 6th less than the 5th, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there was that figure.
So the increasing influence of the group, the amount that each new conformer increases the group influence of conformity goes down with each subsequent person who joins.
Oh yes, the looking up at the window or light or whatever it was in the study they did. They looked up at the 15 people, looked at the video camera and are in front of a sensor. Each looked at the window on the 6th floor and it just grew, and then it just stopped after a certain point. Nobody was added after a certain time, I think is what they said.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I have that one.
And let's see, unanimity. Unanimity is just, I mean, when there's everyone is conforming, it strongly pressures conformity. In a follow-up study, Ash found to the line study, Ash found that if 1 in 16 Confederates breaks with the group response, So if one of the actors did identify the correct line, that conformity, or if they identified the correct line, or if they chose the second incorrect line, conformity was reduced from 37% to 5%. So if unanimity is broken, it dramatically reduces conformity. So like one person standing up for the right thing can make a big change. It's like it gives other people permission to disagree.
Okay.
And then we didn't have to worry about importance of the task. Obedience, power, and leadership.
Okay. Next.
I had social power first for that one.
Mhm.
As the
Yes, social
ability of a person to create conformity, even when the people being influenced may attempt to resist those changes. And then I have Milgram's study on obedience to authority. I can go through that if you want.
Was that the shock experiment?
That was yeah, yep.
Oh yeah, where they were willing to shock another person to death.
That was for me. I was reading that. I
Yeah.
was like, I could never. I would.
I know. That was crazy.
65% of people, 65% of people
were okay with that.
Mhm.
I was like, I could even administer one, even if it was just like, it's just like a, a fun shock ring. No, I'm good. I'm good, guys.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
So
it was encouraging that it dropped off pretty sharply when they changed the setting, but still that 65% of people, like well more than half, were willing to shock another participant to death when they were in a respected university being told to by a renowned professor.
Yeah,
I'd say absolutely. I know. I'd be like, okay. It's kind of disturbing when you think that people would do that, honestly.
But I mean, like, yeah, it's disturbing, but you also have to think like we can't fall prey to these biases and say like, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Science says you're more likely to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And
I was wondering, did the person people actually get shocked that bad, or
no.
they
So
not?
the person who was getting shocked was a Confederate, and what they did is the researcher, the Confederate, and the participant all sat down in the same room prior to the experiment, and they were told, you'll be shocked if you get the answer wrong.
Right.
Like, I will tell this person to shock you, and then they will shock you. And we're studying how pain affects learning, or punishment affects learning. And then the Confederate went into an adjoining room where they could be heard.
And they were just making noises, right?
And I think but they were saying like this real, like it started with mild discomfort, and then they got to like, oh, my heart, like I told you I can't do I can't do this because my heart, and then like they started screaming, and then they just stopped talking at a certain point, like they were and the people
they've got the
were administering shock. Like,
I have the script on how high they went. I think it was like
400 volts.
Yeah, with the whole script of what they were still
and it's
to say.
Danger, dangerous shock. That was crazy.
A little bit.
So,
yeah.
The important situational factors from the variations were I think like the social power of the person running the experiment. Because like the fact that it was done at a respected university with a renowned professor was a big deal. When they conducted the study off campus, compliance dropped from 65% to 48%. When the participant and the Confederate were in the same room, it also dropped from 65 to 40%. So I think like being closer to the person that you're having to hurt, than like having to hold the person's hand on the shock pad. The experimenter, the one telling you to shock the person, not being in the same room as you. And like just a random dude, probably another Confederate saying, no, I'm not going to shock them. Those all dropped compliance to 20%. So yeah, if there's like opposition, if you're in the same room as the person, or if the person telling you to do it isn't present with you, those can all drop compliance.
Yeah, it really shows the power and where it shows the power. So you know how they're at the university and they clearly have more power. They're showing that, and people conform to it because they're
the situational, just the situational power.
And it like you can drop compliance pretty rapidly if you take away the veneer of like legitimacy.
Right. If it's just some random guy or not a.
But I mean, like if you can excuse your actions, saying like I taking accountability away from yourself, then like you're gonna say, well, this guy told me to, so I did it. I was just following orders, things like that.
This distinguished professor was telling me that this was the right thing to do. I needed to do this, and
we all agreed to it beforehand. We were in this like this person said yes.
Right.
So, let's move on to the prison study. I can go over that quickly if you guys want.
Sure.
So the prison experiment was just they took a group of 24 males and they assigned them randomly whether they would be a prisoner or a guard. To enhance the realism of the experiment, the prisoners were arrested from their homes and taken to a simulated prison environment where they had to stay in cells. There was a solitary confinement room and areas for guards. And they found that after a brief revolt on day 2, the guards quickly stopped the rebellion and resorted to physical and psychological abuse and punishment to control the guards. Aside from that, like one instance on day 2, guards and prisoners rapidly conformed to their roles, with guards exhibiting authoritarian behavior and prisoners becoming submissive and showing signs of severe stress and anxiety. The experiment was terminated after 6 days instead of the planned 14 due to the extreme and harmful behavior of the participants and ethical concerns raised by experimenters.
Yeah.
But they found that in follow-up studies that when they omitted the arrest and they had a less realistic jail setup, that they were not able to replicate the results. And in fact, that the follow-up experiment ended early because the guards felt uncomfortable conforming into their role. They just couldn't see themselves as being in a position over the prisoners. So I have that shows that the specifics of the social situation, more than the people themselves, are often the most important determinants of behavior. So like external effects seem to have a stronger effect on determining behavior than internal characteristics.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes away from the idea that we're, independent people with free will. But I mean, we have good evidence for it. So.
Yeah. There's quite a few things.
I think that being aware of that is one of the best ways to guard against it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because it's watching your environment to allow.
And question am I doing this because I think it's the right thing, or am I doing it because the situation is moving me to do it?
Yeah, or somebody's telling me to. Yeah.
The whole time I'm studying this stuff, I'm going like, this could either be used for really, really good purposes, Or just an evil person, an absolutely evil person could use this to brainwash and control people.
Right.
Never mind. Yeah. Yeah.
And they have before.
We have something similar going on right now. So, I mean, history repeating itself. Come on now. Yeah, you've got people who just fall into these patterns and they are able to be easily impressionable and they allow the external situation to either change who they are, they don't question what's happening, they just fall in line because they've got this person of social power telling them how to do it, telling them what to do, and they conform to them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what's happening.
Types of power. We have just the basics. Reward power is when someone's able to influence by providing a reward, like your employer rewards you with money. Coercive power is based on the ability to create negative outcomes for others. So like somebody who's threatening you with punishment if you don't do something, like the mafia extorting protection money. Legitimate power is power vested in those who are appointed or elected to positions of authority, like in the government. And referent power is the ability to influence others because you can lead them to identify with you. Oh, and expert power. It's a type of informational influence based on the desire to obtain valid and accurate information, and where the outcome is likely to be private acceptance. Do you guys need me to go over those again?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, they even have that little table in there too that breaks them down. So that one's pretty straightforward, I believe.
Yeah.
I think we went over leadership.
And we have the different types of leaders. We have the charismatic, transactional, transformational.
Right.
And person, gender, and cultural differences in conformity. I think collectivist societies tend to be more conforming. I don't know about gender and person differences.
They said that with gender, women, we have different levels of it. And I believed, women on average are more concerned with connecting to others and maintaining that group harmony. So we're more likely to kind of mold into these external situations than a man is. Men are likely to hold ground, act independently, and refuse to conform.
So, like, sort of that psychological reactance. That next thing that they're talking about. And I mean, reactance is just pushing back when somebody is trying to influence your behavior or beliefs. When you believe that you should have a right to choose. So I think that's it for chapter 6. Are we good to move on?
Yeah, chapter 6.
All right, chapter 7. Here we go.
Sorry, pull up my chapter.
We're making good time. Oh, I liked this. I really enjoyed this chapter. Liking and loving. We get to go to a happy place for this one. I found myself messaging my husband like all throughout the whole time I was like reading this. I was like, look, we have such a healthy relationship. I'm reading all about how we should act in my textbook, and that's just act. Like, very good, dear. I have to get back to work.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Love you too.
I'm just a psychology nerd at this point.
Wow.
Interpersonal attraction. Just the strength of our liking or loving for another person. And I have social support is the approval, assistance, advice, and comfort that we receive from those with whom we have developed stable, positive relationships.
What was that one again? Sorry.
Social support is the approval, assistance, advice, and comfort that we receive from those with whom we have developed stable, positive relationships.
Okay.
Then let's launch straight into initial attraction with physical attraction. Who's got physical attraction?
So we've got the study. I have the study on there from the basic findings. Is that what we were? I think that's to me what it meant when she said basic findings, was that specific study, and how they set up people on a blind date for hours, and then they go through these dates, and then they interviewed them, and the determinant of participants' liking was their attractiveness. None of the other characteristics mattered as much. Even they were saying even intelligence didn't matter. We were all believing, everybody said their physical appearance was more important.
Do you have anything about like what part about what aspects of physical appearance make somebody more attractive?
Oh, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I've got let's see. Leslie Zebrowitz and her colleagues studied the tendency for men and women. They prefer facial features that have youthful characteristics. So like round, widely spaced eyes, a small nose and chin, and a large forehead. People with like baby faces, more symmetrical faces, seem more familiar and less threatening to us. Also better for reproduction. And let's see what else I have.
I also have culture differences too. How Western cultures were more attractive.
Oh yeah, I have
Western
that.
cultures. They prefer people who have less excess fat and who look physically fit. That's the
Right.
Western.
Although,
Yeah,
I have that while there are some cultural differences, that largely, even across cultures, there's good agreement about which people are most attractive. So like there are some cultures where like being more full figured is like a sign of status and wealth.
Yes. Yeah.
But most societies, regardless of collectivist or individualistic culture, tend to agree with each other on what makes a person attractive. And going along with what you guys said, like it's similarity is a big thing. Even babies as young as 1 year old prefer to look at faces that adults consider attractive, rather than at faces that were unattractive. God, I would hate to be that person whose unattractive picture is used for the experiment.
Right? Like, I'm
sorry,
sorry.
I'm ugly.
Guys.
Babies don't want to look at my face.
Like, we don't like you.
And yeah, so I think that similarity is like the big factor in attractiveness. Similarity, facial symmetry, and just overall appearance of health. I know that for men tended to value the youth of potential partners more than women, and women tend to value social status more than youth or necessarily physical attractiveness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it's worth noting that they did say in the textbook that this, like, it could be because in many countries women have a lower social status than men.
Yes.
And so that's what they're looking for in a partner, and that women do tend to be more discriminating in their choice of partners in countries where women are more equal, so they don't have to worry about social status as much.
Yeah, I do remember reading that. I also know, I had this written down that similarity is probably the most important single detriment of liking. So although we may sometimes prefer people who have different interests and skills from ours, when it comes to personality traits, similarity matters.
Yep.
So I do have that too. So I don't know if it's interesting because it sits there and says that physical appearance is so important, but then we get into similarity and it's like, well, actually. Similarity is pretty important as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Proximity and mere exposure. Let's see. I mean, those are pretty straightforward. You like people, like you have, you like people more that you spend more time around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You like your relationships tend to suffer if you are not close to each other.
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty.
And speaking on affect, and mere exposure refers to the tendency to prefer stimulus that we have seen frequently. So that I think that goes back to like the similarity. Like we just like things that are familiar to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think affect, what I have for that is it's particularly important in interpersonal relationships. Because when we find someone attractive, we experience positive affect, that feeling of like giddiness, and we end up and so it creates a positive feedback loop that makes us like that person even more. But if that mood is created by other causes, that can make us like people more. So like if you want somebody to like you, put them in a good mood when they're around you.
Right. Mood is important. We tend to like people more when we're in a good mood.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Exactly.
What effect does arousal have on liking and attraction?
Well, it had a big effect, right? Was that the one where the guy was on the bridge?
Yes.
Let me see if I can find it. I know I wrote it down. Yeah, Dutton and Aaron, 1974, had an attractive young woman approach individual young men as they crossed a long, wobbly suspension bridge. One interpretation of this finding is that the men who were being interviewed on the bridge were experiencing arousal as a result of being on the bridge, but they misattributed their arousal as liking for the female interviewer. So some of them got interviewed by the female, and then some other ones, they were just on land, right? Got interviewed and they didn't really care. So it showed that the more aroused we are by our situation, the more that we'll end up liking someone, especially if they're attractive.
Near-death experience and an attractive person. Apparently, that's when we're.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's true.
Like that seems to be an interesting finding. If I do.
So I also put down like that was something that I had, but I also have that arousal has a polarizing effect. So like if somebody who like if we see somebody who we find attractive when we're in a state of physiological arousal, we might like them more than if we were just in a baseline state.
Yes, I have that. Yeah.
And likewise, we'll have stronger feelings of anger and disgust during physiological arousal. So we may not find a person who we would normally see as unattractive more attractive just because of physiological arousal. If we do, that could be because of misattribution of arousal.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I left that out. That's important.
I feel like passionate love is pretty explanatory. Kind of love that we experience when we are first getting to know a romantic partner. The honeymoon stage.
Honeymoon stage. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we just started dating. Yeah, we're so gross. We can't take our hands off each other.
I know. 8 years later, and a 5-year-old. I'm like, why are you looking at me?
Well, that's when you move into companionate love.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes. I love you. Don't touch me, please. I'm tired.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been kid and schoolwork all day. I just want a glass of wine, and you can just sit with me. We're watching.
That glass of wine is looking. I am
Exactly.
having some passionate feelings towards that glass of wine.
Glass of wine sitting next to me right now. That's my real love.
I have a companion love just being based on friendship, mutual attraction, common interests, mutual respect, and concern for each other's welfare.
Yes.
The kind of love that makes long relationships. Self-disclosure. I love self-disclosure. It's the tendency to communicate frequently without fear of reprisal and in an accepting and empathetic manner. Reciprocal self-disclosure is an indicator of a strong romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you can talk to them without judgment, without fear of rejection.
Exactly.
You
And I feel like you get into that part of love, and I feel like that's even more important than just the passionate love. Like, we all love a good passionate love, but this is the nitty gritty of it all. This is where
the self-disclosure comes as a result of a lengthy time in that relationship where you have felt safe. It's the result that mutual self-disclosure happens as a result of the long-term stability of the relationship.
Yes.
And a relationship is said to be intimate when partners feel that they are close, and when they indicate their relationship is based on caring, warmth, acceptance, and social support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have that too.
Perfect. Let's see, closeness and intimacy.
Communal and exchange relationship.
Let's
I have communal relationships or close relationship in which partners suspend their need for equity and exchange, giving support to their partner in order to meet his or her needs and without consideration of the cost to themselves.
Going hungry to feed your kids.
Exactly. And then they're contrasted with exchange relationships in which each of the partners keep track of his or her contributions to the partnership.
That's why you don't keep score in a marriage.
Yep. Honestly, both of these are a tad toxic, if we're being honest. A little toxic.
Well, I mean, communal relationships can be more like, I'm giving up I am postponing my needs to take care of you because you are an integral part of my well-being.
Or maybe because that's more important right now.
Right. It can lead to toxic if we're not careful.
Oh no, it absolutely can.
Yeah. But it's important you give and you give and you take and you give and you take. There has to be an even amount of that.
Let's see, we're on interdependence. Interdependent relationship is when its participants are relying to a great degree on each other to accomplish mutual goals.
Hold on. Oh, there it is. I scrolled too far. I was like, wait, where is this?
I know. I was trying to look for it too.
Like, wait, I'm missing something. What happened here? And then commitment refers to feelings and actions that keep partners working together to maintain the relationship. I feel like that's pretty.
That makes, I mean, yeah, I think we all understand that.
And then, sorry.
Right.
Sunk cost bias.
Choosing to stay in the situations largely because we feel we have put too much effort in to be able to leave them behind. And it says when considering whether to leave or stay, we must consider both the costs and benefits of the current relationship and the costs and benefits of the alternatives. So really really weighing out, the best decision depending on if we put a lot of time and effort into it.
Well, where someone falling prey to the sunk cost bias is not going to do that. Or it's like
Right.
Somebody staying in an abusive relationship because they've been in that relationship for years. And how am I going to find somebody else? How am I going to support myself or my family?
Marriage with kids, you don't like each other anymore, but you stay for the kids because you don't know how to leave with the kids involved and all of this. There's a lot that you can fall into that, not be able to feel like you can get out.
When I think of the sunk cost bias, I think of I have put so much into this. It's similar to, I think, the cognitive bias of people who suffer or who go through embarrassing trials or embarrassing or painful trials to join groups where they think like all of this that I've put, like all of this effort or pain that I've put into this has to be worth something. So they stick it out, even though that payoff is not guaranteed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's sunk cost bias. Okay, the triangular model. Do you guys have that? I actually drew it myself.
I did too. I have it drawn on my paper.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't put them on.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't think we need to go over that if we all have it.
No.
It's just the different combinations of passion, intimacy, and commitment. And when all of those are present, it makes consummate love.
Mm-hmm.
Attachment style.
This was fun. Yeah. I love trying to sit there and be like, what attachment style do I have?
Yeah. So I've got attachment styles
everyone in your life.
Huh?
And then armchair diagnosing everyone in your life.
Yes, it's so fun. I sit there and I'm like,
my dad totally has disorganized attachment style.
Oh my gosh. My dad in my head has been diagnosed way too many times with different things and characterized. And I'm like, these inside thoughts need to stay inside.
So who wants to go over the attachment styles?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
I've got, so the attachment style is individualized differences in how people relate to others in close relationships. So the secure attachment style, they perceive their parents as safe, available, and responsive caregivers and are able to easily relate to them. I've got anxious, ambivalent attachment style, becoming overly dependent on the parents and continually seeking more affection from them than they can give. Avoidant attachment style, unable to relate to the parents at all, becoming distant, fearful, and cold. Disorganized attachment style, a blend of the other two insecure styles. This style also shows some links to adulthood patterns. In this case, an avoidant, fearful attachment style. And then there is a healthy attachment style. They apparently stay in relationships longer. They have more stable relationships and they feel less jealousy. And then I've just got some notes about anxious and avoidant can be problematic because in relationships specifically, because they can be less warm, get angry at their partners. They have more difficulty expressing their feelings, worry about love and commitment for them. They interpret partners' behaviors more negatively, and they can have trouble creating close relationships in the first place and difficulty understanding the emotions of others. And they show a relative lack of interest in learning about their romantic partner's thoughts and feelings. So that could be definitely problematic in a relationship.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing about attachment style is that it's developed in childhood and and relatively stable in adulthood. So things that happen to you as a kid can mess you up for life.
They call it childhood trauma for a reason.
but it can be addressed. It's just that it's relatively stable.
It is. You just have to find the right coping
They say
mechanism.
That's what
They can
therapists
change
are
the
for.
world,
Exactly.
All right.
Therapy makes everything better.
I think we are on our last chapter.
Yes.
Yeah, chapter 11. I
Wow.
think chapter 11 was one of the most. Well, chapter 11 took me the longest to get through.
Yeah. I had fun with this one because it overlaps with my paper that I'm doing.
Ooh, nice.
Speaking of Linnea, we Victoria and I talked about this before. Before you showed up. If you haven't, you should get started on your final paper for the class.
I know.
No judgment. No judgment. I haven't.
I haven't. Yeah.
The professor's been a lot of help. I sent her my outline and she gave me some feedback on it.
That's good.
So
That's really good.
Reach out if you need to.
I think
I'm hoping.
says that
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think she said the latest that she was going to take outlines was last week. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much help well, I mean, I'm sure she'll be helpful, but she won't be able to do our outlines or help us with our outlines.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Chapter 11, Stereotypes, Prejudice, and Discrimination. Since the ABCs have been important, I think just knowing that prejudice is affect, stereotype is cognition, and discrimination is behavior is going to be important. Where prejudice is how you feel about outgroups, stereotypes is how you reason out your perceptions in your head, and discrimination is how you act on those two.
Yeah.
So who wants to do social categorization?
I can. So I have social categorization, the natural cognitive process by which we place individuals into social groups. We categorize people according to social group membership, men, women, old, young, so on and so forth. So that's what I have for those. It kind of seemed, I also put the table, I did the table, went over kind of the spontaneous social categorization that happens.
And that social categorization is just natural. Like we just do it without even thinking.
Right. And like we did the study they did was talking about memories within race, between races, and kind of how we remembered. I think it was their names, right? It was their names or something.
Yeah.
It was names, right? Name confusions. That's right above. Geez. And how we made our errors with memory, and within race we were less likely to.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. So after social categorization, let's do stereotyping.
I've got benefits of stereotyping. Is that where we are?
I have benefits of social categorization. Is that what we're on?
Yeah.
Okay. You can do that one.
I have we sometimes categorize others not because it seems to provide more information about them, but because we may not have the time or motivation to do anything more. That's kind of just what we do. We're in there. So like one of the examples was you find yourself lost in a city, you might look for a police officer or taxi driver because we know that we're in a new city. These people will know what we're asking because they're there. So we just kind of automatically put them in it.
Yeah, and like we've categorized them as like people who would know their way around.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I said it's a normal way of dealing with the world in which we reduce the complexity of it by relying on stereotypes. stereotypes because we like to make
Mhm.
things easy for ourselves. So we just,
Yes.
I feel like we just kind of categorize things in our brain like, okay, this is that, this is whatever.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And negative outcomes, I think, are pretty obvious. Like we can engage in like unjustified stereotyping, especially
Mm-hmm.
unjustified negative stereotyping, because, and I think that goes into the next term, the outgroup homogeneity, is that we tend to believe that people who are in an outgroup all tend to be the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When that's not the case, because most groups are as diverse as are in groups.
Mm-hmm.
Why are stereotypes so hard to change?
Usually because they start when we're young, right?
That's part of it.
Part of it. So I've got,
They're also reinforced a lot
yeah, by
by
media and the world around us, right?
media and culture.
Yeah.
We learn from communication. Stereotypes are maintained because information confirms our stereotypes. They're better remembered than information that disconfirms them, and they become an integral and important part of our everyday lives and our culture as well.
Yeah.
Yep. And then how do we implicit measures are pretty straightforward. That's basically just self-reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we do indirect measures of those stereotypes?
Indirect or implicit? Sorry.
Implicit.
Implicit. Oh, I saw that there was an implicit association test. It frequently uses to assess stereotypes stereotypes and prejudice in the IAT. Participants are asked to classify stimuli that they view on a computer screen into one of the two categories by pressing one, or two categories by pressing. Oh my gosh, I wrote that twice. Oh my geez. I'm like, wait a minute, this is way too much. What am I doing? I wrote that sentence twice. That's why I hate writing. By pressing one of two computer keys, one with their left hand and one with their right hand. I did that test, because I think they have the link there. Did you guys do the?
I did not.
I didn't either. No.
It's really interesting. It's definitely something to look in to do, and it makes you think really fast. You have to you are moving. Like you got to move fast. You got to do it, and it's this one was on white women and Asian women, and thinking about what biases you have toward them. Like Asian women are be smarter. What I think was basically what it was supposed to do. So it was just gives you where you're kind of fall into it. It was interesting, but it's definitely something just fun to see if you want to do it. Not fun,
Yeah,
but just kind of a fun little experiment to do. Gave me a break from school for a second. Yeah, didn't take very. It took long enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Doing the project after reading that report and the definitions and everything kind of helped put A and B together. So just do that good.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I'm a visual learner. It's helpful.
Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, IAT is. I think IAT has basically been what they rely on for measuring most of the things that we've looked at indirectly.
Yeah.
So then self-fulfilling prophecies, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, for example, if you perceive another racial group as dangerous and you treat them as such, then you might be put in a dangerous position, or you might cause them to be dangerous because you're acting in a defensive or suspicious manner.
Right.
Yeah, literally all I wrote for that is stereotypes can be self-fulfilling prophecies. It's
Yeah.
straightforward.
Yeah, that's what I've got too.
In-group favoritism is the tendency to respond more positively to people from our in-groups than we do for people from our out-groups. And the experiment that I have for that is Henri Tajfel's 1971 experiment that divided its participants into two groups. And they were told that their grouping was based on their response to two contemporary artists, but that was a deception. Each participant was told which group they were assigned to, and then asked to use a provided scorecard to assign points between the two groups. They would say, okay, for a boy in your group and a boy in the other group, assign points based on these numbers that are paired up. This one was really weird for me to understand.
This was a hard one.
On what they gave them a card that had a bunch of number pairs together, and you would choose one of the number pairs and assign one of those numbers in points to one boy and the other number in points to the other boy. And what they found is that the boys were more likely to try to increase the distance in numbers between their two groups, even if it hurts boys in their own group. So, for example, instead of awarding both two boys, one in their group and one in the other group, both 12 points, they chose to award the boy in their group 8 points and the boy in the other group 1 point.
Right.
But when they were awarding points only to boys in the other group or only to boys in their own group, they were pretty fair in how they were fairly equal in how they awarded points. So I guess that experiment just showed that we have more motivation to increase our group status in comparison to another group, even if it hurts our own group.
Yeah. And then I also put in there, because I put kind of what's his results, and that was that in-group favoritism is going to occur on even something as unimportant as this grouping on the basis of such arbitrary and unimportant grouping. So we just do it no matter what, if it could be as simple as this little experiment, or that, what he did with the kids, or something major, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got also, when an in-group member engages in a positive behavior, we tend to see it as a stable internal characteristic of the group as a whole. I thought that was maybe important.
Yeah.
That is the group serving bias or ultimate attribution.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yep.
No, you're good. You're good. That's what we were on. Yeah. So just that we tend to, if people in our group, if someone in our group does something positive, we see that as a stable characteristic, internal characteristic of the group. If somebody in our group does something negative, we see that as unique to them, not as a characteristic of the group. Whereas if someone in an out group does something positive, we see that as their individual behavior. But if they do something negative, then it's the whole group's fault.
That's kind of funny.
I mean, I can think of real life examples of that. When I thought about somebody in the out group doing something favorable, I thought of the old stereotype, the old racist stereotype of somebody saying, "Oh, you're one of the good ones."
Yep, you're not like the other. You're not like them. Yeah.
Right.
So they attribute the positive behavior only to the individual, not to the group. And it's the exact opposite for your in-group. And the causes of that is that it's a natural part of social organization We tend to like people and things that are similar to ourselves. And another cause is that it comes from our need for self-enhancement. Because we want to feel good about ourselves, we want to feel good about our in-groups.
Mm-hmm.
And we are more likely to show in-group favoritism when we're threatened or worried about our self-concept.
Right.
Which Victoria, that goes back to what I was talking about with my paper. I'm doing mine on on social identity and self-concept and how that applies to political partisanship in America. And what they found was that people were more more open to persuasion and hearing an opposing argument immediately after they had engaged in self-affirmation, and when their core values were made salient. So they felt secure in their identity, and they were reminded of the values that are important to them. So that goes right along with that in-group favoritism increases when we don't feel secure in our identity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Because then we're looking to the group for security, right? Instead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, have either of you seen The Good Place?
No.
Oh, never mind. When you have the time, you should watch it. It's only 4 seasons long, and it is so funny.
Okay.
Good Place.
Write it down. What's it on?
I don't know what it's on. But
I'll look it up.
What it is in a nutshell is Kristen Bell ends up in The Good Place.
Oh, yes. I know what I've seen like 5 episodes, but I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, that's funny. That's a funny show. That's a really funny show.
The guy who welcomes her there is telling her all the amazing things she did in her life. Like, you were a human rights lawyer, you went on a hunger strike, and she meets her soulmate, and she goes, and when she's alone with her soulmate, she goes, "That's not me. I'm not this good person. I don't belong here. You have to teach me how to be a good person so I can fit in." It's so funny.
It was really, I have seen a few episodes. I've been wanting to watch more of it. It's just I have a list of shows. I'm like, I want to watch the rest of this. I want to watch the rest of this.
20 minutes long.
I know. And then I'm like, repeat of The Office for 4 days.
I know how that goes.
Okay. Okay, so we've got the in-group, and then we have when in-group favoritism does not occur, we have the black sheep effect.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we have that when you kind of break from my headphone. The strong evaluation of in-group members who threaten the positive image and identity of the in-group.
Which that makes sense because, if somebody on your in-group is threatening your social identity, then they become a threat to you, and you begin reacting defensively, and you begin forcing them out. That's why, family member. That's why, very conservative families made disown queer children.
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, because they're not part of that. They're not in there what they want to call in-group anymore.
Yeah, you're hurting my concept of my social identity.
Yep. And so that's where that term, black sheep comes from. You're the black sheep of the family. You don't fit their norms of what they perceive to be their norms or their correct selves.
Right.
So interesting how I've been thinking a lot about how aggressive and hateful actions I'm seeing, I can trace them all back to a place of fear. A place of fear of losing self-concept stability.
Yeah.
Or self-concept clarity and social identity stability.
Right.
So it is said that it's rooted in fear, but it also is, sometimes you see, and it's just like, how can you be it's sometimes hard to wrap your head around, like, that's what they are. It comes off of fear, like they are,
I mean, like,
their self-concept.
It's still something I look at this and I go, this is wrong. But at the same time,
Yeah.
it helps me understand the motivations a lot more, and helps me like, instead of going this, it helps me make more situational attributions instead of going, this person is a horrible person because they're mean and hateful. You think this person is a scared person, and they're reacting because like, like, when I started writing my paper, and I compare it to like an anaphylactic allergic reaction. Like, it's your mental immune system attacking an invader.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Exactly. That is exactly what it is.
Yeah. So you got to disguise it. You got to dress it up all nice.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
And you trick them. You trick them into being good people.
And it's you can't treat fear with aggression. You have to find a way to rather it be educate's probably the best word. Educate, kind of bring to a better place, and kind of understand what was the word I'm looking for? Make them more open-minded, and explain, like, you don't have to be afraid, and like work with them and educate, not aggressive and yell and scream. Because like you were saying, that's not going to get anything. You're not going to be able to argue or make a point or anything with that type of behavior. Because
when you're arguing, you're just pushing them back. You're pushing them further and further into a corner. Like the reason that you will never persuade someone to change their opinions based on facts is because they're not defending their position when they're arguing. They're defending their identity.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's gone past the point now of their position. It's become their identity that they are now.
And they are stuck in a fight or flight situation where like, so I think the only way to really effectively persuade people is to get them to a point, is to put them in a place where they're secure in their identity, and then you try to create that self-other overlap, which we're going to get into towards the end of the chapter. But
yes,
authoritarianism is a personality dimension that characterizes people who prefer things to be simple rather than complex, and who tend to hold traditional and conventional values.
Yeah.
Something interesting from that I saw about authoritarianism is that they tend to react with strong feelings of disgust when confronted with unfamiliar like situations.
Right. And then social dominance orientation is a personality variable that refers to the tendency to see and to accept inequality among different groups. Yep.
So like I'm thinking like monarchy. Like, some people are there to rule and some people are there to serve, and that's the way it should be. Is like, that's being social dominance oriented.
Well, that's how further down it goes over how they tested a hypothesis on the Chinese participants with their collective orientation or collectivist words. Anyway, they found social groups were more important than what Americans. So as a result, they were likely to infer personality traits on the basis of groups. So like you were saying, so like they have, a status, a trait. So like they've got their ruling party, monarch, dictator, elected official, whatever. And then they care more about your group as it is, not your individualistic character.
Yeah. But they also make stronger stereotypical inferences.
Yeah.
because collectivist cultures see individuals as part of a larger organism, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you share those characteristics with the other parts of your social group.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I have reducing stereotype responses can be accomplished just by practicing. We can by practicing not having stereotypical judgments. We can also reduce prejudice and stereotyping by being exposed to and thinking about group members who have particularly positive or non-stereotypical characteristics. People who are more educated express fewer prejudices and stereotype in general.
Right.
That's one thing I kept seeing was like education, educate. It makes such a difference when an education, educate yourself on whatever. You are less likely, or you can learn how to not be, just gotta educate yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Education was a theme throughout for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you have to confront it. You can't just watch it happen. You have to confront it and see that, say that when you see it happen, when you see it, speak up.
Like, well, you have to catch yourself in it.
Mm-hmm. That too.
And reverse that thinking.
Right.
Well, and that's where, like, the practicing, you can do that. But then I also think, like, that thinking about people who don't fit your stereotypes in that out group that you have that stereotype about, like, this is the only example that's coming into my head. It's a dumb one, but like where people have the stereotype that, like, Asian people are good at math. Well, I have an Asian friend who's awful at math. So like, if you think about that, like, you make that accessible and salient, it makes the tendency to stereotype, it reduces it. Also, changing social norms to make it socially unacceptable to stereotype and to hold prejudiced views, that reduces their occurrence. That's using conformity in a good way, I guess. And if we believe prejudice is wrong, we have to confront it when we see people engaging in it. Confronting prejudice can lead to people disliking you for calling it out, but when people fail to confront prejudice, they frequently feel guilty later for not calling it out.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think people have been in the situation where they have not called it out, and when they have called it out, and you can see in yourself where you were like, "Damn, I should have gone back." You do see that. That's completely true. I know. I've made mistakes of not saying anything when I see it, and I've kept my head down, and I go home and I'm like, sorry, but what was I thinking? Like, and then I fix it though. You have to make those changes within yourself. So it's really important about the self-education and the fixing the way you think and the way you interpret in your brain. You've got to retrain your brain to think, to not think these things and to not, fall into that stereotypical things that we are kind of sometimes exposed to as kids. That's kind of the big thing too, is what are these kids exposed to? It starts at, I've got a 5-year-old, and there's a lot of things being taken away in her school right now. And I have to be the parent to show her why this is wrong. And I have to continue to educate her and make sure she doesn't fall into what's happening right now and make the next generation better,
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Kudos to you.
It's a rough time right now to be a mom. So
it's a very rough time. I have a 6-year-old. I get it.
Yeah.
I feel you.
And,
I'm in South Korea though, so I have a whole different set of problems to deal with.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they just had a coup there, didn't they?
They did sort of. It's the governmental stuff is like really crazy here right now too, and they say they're like copying the U.S. and I'm like, oh
yeah, except they actually impeached and prosecuted and imprisoned the guy who did it.
Yes,
yeah, we're not apparently doing that, but it's like we're on. My husband's in the military, so we're on a base school, so we fall under the Department of Defense and what they've rolled back and have not allowed. So we got an email from the school saying how they will be going through the library books, and pulling books. Yeah. That have any, have any of his whatever. And so I am in constant communication with the principal. Like, I want to know what list, I want to know what's pulled, and I will be buying them for my house. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's yeah. It's
you would
so
see
crazy right now.
a lot of teachers, though, are, I guess, on our side, are like on, they don't want to shelter, they don't want to like pull these books from these kids, they don't want to ban these books, they don't want to not teach these kids these things
To limit.
been,
it's just like limiting their exposure. Like, that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
It all comes down to that education
Exactly.
reduce the stereotypes and prejudice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this chapter was a little harder to get to, and the experiment was hard to watch, because you're just, you just look at these kids and it's like, this is what they're being taught now. Like, that happened in the 60s, but this is kind of the crap that's happening now. It's just a different group of people.
Yeah.
And,
that's one of the reasons why we're here. And my son is he's in Korean kindergarten, actually. So like he goes to a kindergarten where they only speak Korean, and he is the minority there, and he's learning what it's like to be a minority at 5 and 6 years old, because I want that for him, not like the opposite. Like, you're going to learn how hard it is in your early years, so that hopefully you can be more accepting of other people when you get older. And
I feel like he's also going to have such a different perspective on everything, and he's going to eventually pick up another language. That is because 5 and 6 year olds, they absorb that stuff.
Yes.
So
just make sure when you guys move that, like, make sure you have him keep up with it.
Yeah. That's because the thing we want to do.
I have cousins who their mom is Chilean, and they speak no Spanish.
Because they didn't keep up with it.
So
the good thing is my husband is learning Korean too, so they're going to be keeping up with it together. So that's the plan.
Yeah. But look at this. This all goes back to the basis of what this chapter speaks about, is education. That's all this falls into.
Well, education, and I think, like, you can change your cognition if you want to change it.
If you want to, you have to make the choice. And sometimes that's
the hard thing, is that, like, you have to persuade people. The only way to change people, the only way for people's minds to change is for them to decide to change them. And the way that you get them to do that is by making them secure in their identity, making their core values salient, and then getting them to engage in and then getting them to, like, actually engage with the ideas, like getting them to engage in directed cognition and reason through the position. So, but I mean, that's why people never change their minds, is because, like, they never actually reason through their opponent's position ever, like, regardless of the position you're in. That's why the Civil War happened. So
it's you watch it happen over and over and over again, and you always wonder why. And you've got, I like the points that you're making with having them. That I think that's a very interesting and a perspective that people need to have. I like that.
Yeah, your paper sounds good. I'd love.
I know.
To
I'm gonna read your paper when you're done. Like, I kind of want to read this when you're done. I need to see how this turns out. I need to know.
I know. Seriously, that's how I feel too.
Shoot me an email. Let me know that you want a copy of it. I'll send it along when it's done. You guys have my email.
I know. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's wrap this up. I think we're almost done. Let's see. So
we're on contact hypothesis. Is that where we're at?
Yeah. Let's do that. Contact hypothesis.
So it's the idea that intergroup contact will reduce prejudice. So, example of children from different ethnic groups play together in school, their attitude towards each other should improve.
Yes.
But that is ineffective if the contact between groups doesn't lead to the subject developing new beliefs about the outgroup.
Right.
So if they don't change, if their thoughts don't, if their cognition doesn't start to change while they're having that interaction, then after the interaction is done, it's not going to have any difference.
It just goes back to normal, pretty much. Yeah.
Intergroup contact hypothesis, interdependence. I've
got that one. A state in which the group members depend on each other for successful performance of the group goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like that jigsaw classroom.
Where different racial or ethnic groups work together in an interdependent way to master material.
Yeah. Students meet together to develop a strong rapport, and then they end up, cooperating and helping each other out, and it reduces, it just gets them, I think exposure, honestly, just, changes things too. Like, they talk about that as well. Like, just the exposure in itself is helpful. So
that's kind of like the extended contact hypothesis. That's your right. That's the intent, the idea that prejudice can be reduced for people with friends. So like that's the.
So yeah, that's right.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah.
Like if somebody has a negative opinion about like gay people, for example, and they have a friend who is friends with a gay person,
right?
Their attitude may start to shift over time to be favorable towards gay people just because of their friend's interaction with a gay person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then recategorization involves changing the way individuals perceive group boundaries. Instead of seeing us and them, recategorization encourages individuals to see themselves as part of a larger, more inclusive group. That's also self-other overlap, where you start to see the other as part of yourself or part of your social group. And so you start to care about their success. You start to include them in yourself and group enhancement. Sheriff and colleagues Robert's Cave experiment had boys go to a summer camp that was actually an experiment. And they were unaware of each other's presence at first, but then the two separate groups found out about each other, and they were put in situations where they were competing with each other, and tensions between the groups escalated quite quickly to like vandalizing each other's campsites and engaging in physical altercations. But then when they introduced superordinate goals, they started to come together. So when they gave them those goals, where they had to where they had to work together as groups and become interdependent, then they started to have that common in-group identity as their groups began to sort of merge due to necessity. And the superordinate goals are just goals that like the goals that both groups that the in-group and the out-group share, that can only be accomplished by working together.
Right.
The not really I don't know what you want to call it, a little workout for it is like it has a little thing in there. It says interdependence and cooperation, go to common group identity, and then it goes into favorable intergroup attitudes. So I like that it kind of broke it down like that. Kind of helpful. I wrote that down.
Oh yeah, I have that too. Interdependence and cooperation.
Yeah.
I
was like trying to think. I was like visual. It's not a graph. It's not a thing. It's just a thing. It's just there.
Yeah, I highlighted that too.
Well, I think that's the end of chapter 11. Was there anything that we wanted to clarify or any questions that you guys had left over?
So
Good.
So the exam last time,
Mhm.
did you? Because I did all right. Like I said, I didn't do great. She dinged me for mainly my essay. Neither here nor there. So for your, she said I wasn't long enough. I had 4 pages for each term. That's or 4 sentences. That's neither here nor there. So did you notice though? I want to talk about the essay. The essay did. What did you guys? I want to ask what you did because I feel like it's kind of like cheating-ish. But like, how did you guys break it
I
down?
don't think that's
to
cheating.
where okay, I was like, how did you break it down to where she?
I saved my essay.
Okay.
Let me see how much I wrote because I really liked my essay.
I don't feel like I got a
mine
great
too.
grade on the essay either. She said it was short and I needed to expand more, but that's like always, I feel like my issue. It's
I
always like
know.
I need to expand more and write more, and I'm just like trying to get it done.
I
You
know.
know,
My essay was 880 words.
What? No, mine was not that long.
how long is that? Is that like
That is about 1.5 pages, single spaced.
whoa?
No,
Oh
that was
wow,
not.
yeah.
No.
Mine was like not that long either.
I did at least 4 sentences per word that we had to do, but that I know did not equal to 880 words.
Yeah.
I think so what I tried to do with the essay question was I tried to incorporate as much of as many of the terms as I could remember, specifically from the chapter on the self that that she wanted us to focus on. But I also just brought in a lot of other concepts from. So what I ended up doing it on, I did it on my husband, but it also ended up being about myself because we both grew up in the same conservative religious community, well tradition. We grew up in different parts of the country, but I talked about how I talked about how growing up closeted in in that sort of situation affected the development of our self-concept. I can just sort of skim through it with you if you want.
Yeah,
It sounds like
I'm
you just
reading
went
it.
into a lot more detail. I mean,
Yeah,
I just was pretty brief, like with a lot of the topics.
Called me a great writer and I did great, but then she's like, elaborate. I was like, well, did I do great or did I not do great?
I know like one of the things that she wants to see is like it's sort of like playing with the ideas that we're learning about in our heads and like putting those ideas onto paper. Like I tend to start thinking abstractly about the concepts that we're learning about and going like I was riding the bus with my husband and I was like and I just asked him because I had just been learning about like stereotyping and prejudice and then like how to alleviate that. And I started asking him, I was like, what would it take? Like, what does it take for you to feel compassion for just a random stranger on the street? And he's like, I'm not sure. And I was like, okay, because I want to run it. I would love to run an experiment where I see what it takes for somebody to mildly inconvenience themselves for somebody that they see as that they perceive in an out group, or what it would take to majorly inconvenience themselves, or what it would take for them to risk harm to themselves to help somebody in an out group. And so like I start thinking about things like that and I just kind of build on the ideas because I did pretty well on my essay question. So
I got a 28 out of 40. So yes, I'm taking in all of this advice, please.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah, I don't remember what I got, but it wasn't great. And I was thinking the same thing. Like I need help on
I pulled up my I only know right now because I pulled up my thing to like look at what she said I missed so I could see
yeah,
where
maybe
I was.
let me look at mine too.
So she really wants us to like really think more into our views than use it. I mean, she wants us to use the textbook obviously for terms and stuff like that, but like she really wants to see what we think. Like, is that what she
I
is
think that what
wanting?
she wants to see most out of the essay questions is that
Mhm.
out of the essay question is that like not just that we know the material, but that we can apply it.
Mm,
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
so like I didn't just talk about how self-concept develops and how say I didn't just talk about like what cognitive dissonance is. I said I know I said both from my own experience and from talking with my husband, I know that he experienced cognitive dissonance regularly during his childhood and adolescence because of these conflicting aspects of his self-concept, his religion, and being gay. Our church taught that any sexual romantic activity outside of heterosexual marriage was evil. We were also taught you can't get to heaven without being married. When you're a teen, you start to get attracted to people. A straight person can recognize that as a normal crush or wanting to ask someone on a date. For gay men in that church, though, every time you saw a cute guy, you were conditioned to immediately feel guilt and shame. So every time you saw someone you thought was cute became a stimulus for strong feelings of cognitive dissonance without a way to self-soothe. So I took those concepts that we learned about, and I like walked through the process of how cognitive dissonance applied to that setting of having conflicting having conflicting aspects of my self-concept.
right.
And so like it's engaging with the material in a way that applies it sort of to real life and then building on that. And I talked about so from there I moved on to let's see. Yeah, I'll just keep going through this briefly.
I really appreciate you doing this because
absolutely.
I do too.
I have not actually had problems in any of my classes until now, and so I was pretty like I had the I guess what I call it a little overconfidence bias happening. I was like, unrealistic bias. I was like, I got this, guys, and then I'm like, oh no, I don't have this, and then I went on to rate my professor, and I was getting very scared and intimidated. I was like, how am I going to make it through this class? Am I going to do this? So I appreciate all the advice I can get.
No, absolutely. So after I talked about we weren't able to, we had no way to escape the cognitive dissonance, no way to self-soothe either. And so when I talked it, I referenced the self-soothing, and I said, like a person's social identity and falling in love are very strong motivations and can be critical parts of our self-concept. When these important self-schema are at war with each other, we can't have very good self-concept clarity. One thing that made things worse for us was our self-consciousness, our fear of being judged and rejected by our social group that made us hide our dilemma from our families, friends, and authority figures out of shame. This crisis of dissonance within the self-concept led to a state of very negative self-esteem. As we got older, we found other gay members of our church that were also trying to reconcile their sexual orientation and the demands of their social group. This did help us increase our consonant cognition. So I referenced back to the cognitive dissonance, and I was like, this is how we started to self-soothe, by increasing our consonant cognition, which definitely improved our self-concept clarity and self-esteem. But the self-schema of church member and gay were still fundamentally incompatible. When we began dating, he had started to let go of his association with his faith tradition. I had left the church years earlier, and my own self-esteem went right up. As I became a bigger part of my husband's chosen social group, he began asking me for self-verification to help him engage in self-enhancement. And I approved of his slowly changing self-concept that was abandoning a huge part of his social identity. As he engaged in private self-consciousness, reflecting on his thoughts and feelings, he also approved of the changes he had made in his self-concept, and his cognitive dissonance began to resolve. It's been more than 5 years since my husband adopted this major change in his self-concept. His self-concept clarity has improved, as as his self-concept has become more stable and clear to himself, and as a result, his overall self-esteem has improved. Having been members of the same church will always, having been members of that church will always be a part of us. Just like Aronson and Mills found in their 1959 study, we were bought into this group because of what we gave up for it. Daniel, or my husband and I, have gone through painful experiences to belong in that social group. We gave up 10% of our money to the church, and we gave up 2 years of our lives to it in missionary service. It shouldn't be surprising that a much smaller part of our lives, or it shouldn't be surprising the much smaller part of our self-concept still lies with our experiences in that group. Occasionally, we'll seek self-verification from each other, and our therapists help with that too. We also engage in self-enhancing behavior by thinking about how much happier we are now. That helps soothe the part of ourselves that is still stuck hurting in the past. I think that one of the reasons my husband and I are such a good match for each other is that we have both been through similar trauma. As Schachter found in his 1959 experiment, people who feel anxious or who are expecting a painful situation often prefer to affiliate with others in the same situation. Both of our families still belong to that church. It will never truly be out of our lives, and occasionally that's painful, but we help each other through it, and we gauge how we feel about it off of each other. Building a self-concept is complex, and it takes time, but I'm happy I'm learning more about how I made mine. One of my budding self-schemas is mental health care worker, and it's becoming more important to me day by day.
Wow. That's really good.
Wow. That's a really
no wonder
good.
I got such a bad grade.
I know. I'm like, okay, that explains everything. Got it. That's a really good. Okay,
Yeah.
so now that makes more sense on how she wants it. But that's
It
just
does.
the
So you put in like research findings and you just elaborated a lot. I was like pretty brief. I like threw some terms in there and just kind of like
Oh yeah, no, I
stuff for it.
the majority of the time that I spent on the test was on the essay question.
Yeah.
You see, I spent a lot more time doing the actual test.
I think that having I know that the review session helped me tremendously to just get through that section quickly.
Yeah, same.
And also having my notes well organized. Like if I wasn't certain about a multiple choice answer, I knew which chapter I needed to go to, and that in the textbook, because it's open book.
Yes.
So I just go to the section that I need. I hit Control F. I search for the topic that I need, and I look for the section in the textbook that I need to like where I need to double check my answer. And so like I rushed through the multiple choice and the short answer questions, or like the fill in the blanks. And then I wrote out my essay. When I was happy with my essay, I had enough time to go back and review the first part of the test and then submit. So and if I'm being like, so I think Victoria, like having been to the review will probably help you a lot on the first part of the test. I don't know if you had a similar experience, Linnea.
I did, yeah. I felt like that was really easy for me. I went through it really fast, and I was like, "Oh, that was simple." And I did pretty well on that. I lost a lot of points on the.
I got like I think it was like I got like a 138, 132 out of 170 on the multiple choice fill in the blank that part. And then my essay that wasn't great either, but my essay set really was what brought me down quite a bit.
Yeah.
But that makes me feel a little bit better that this will help me kind of move a little quicker, because that was my problem. I got done with the multiple choice. It took me a little over an hour. So I was like stressed trying to write this essay, as fast, not as, as fast as I can with as little errors as I can. Cause Graham really decided to be crazy for me.
I would just do like an initial sweep through the first part of the test and just like select the multiple choice answers that you think are best and like get to the essay, like just like don't like skip them if they're giving you trouble, but like briefly go through each of those. And then when you get to the essay question, spend like, it's 2 hours long. So you should spend at least an hour on the essay question. I think. I mean, if you can have the time to do that, and then go back and double check the other answers that you've put in if you have time.
Right.
I mean, your essay, it doesn't need to look pretty. It can have spelling and like composition errors. She's not really checking for that. It's more like,
because that's what always.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't worry about that. Like, you're not.
mine's the like citing stuff. I feel like that's what bogs me down so much. It
Well,
takes
I mean,
me
like,
so long to cite everything.
But I remember like vaguely the experiments that we've read about in the chapter, and so like I didn't remember the names of the people who did those experiments or the years that they did them. I just remember, I read about this experiment and it really it reinforces my point and supports my argument. So I'm going to go back to the textbook and find the name and the year of this experiment, and I'm going to include that. So that was I referenced back to my notes in the textbook a lot when I was writing my essay.
Well, do you
just say like cited in text? Because she said for the essay we can just say like cited in textbook or from the textbook.
Yeah, that's what mine says too. Is to say that like whereas I just had it. However, from text that can provide depth. Yeah, it says like put, as
Per the
textbook
text
or whatever. She doesn't. Yeah, per textbook. She doesn't ask for like a whole thing, right?
Good
For the exam.
I mean, like you don't have to put in like the APA style citation or anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, like, that also what kind of slowed me down. I was trying to figure out.
No. I mean, like, I just put in like I put in experiments because they fit into my essay.
Yeah,
they supported what I was saying.
But I'm sure that helped a lot. I mean,
probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because like she said, like if and I'm pretty sure that the experiments that I referenced in my essay were ones that she had included in the chapter outlines. And I remember in one of her letters, she said, pay special attention to any of the experiments.
I just, in my note to fix it, she goes, and to mention a few research findings. So she does really want us to do the research findings in there. Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of feel a little better this time. I like how she mentioned kind of with research. There's a lot of research findings. But there's a lot. But I like in these outlines how she really like highlighted which ones she wanted us to really pay attention to. I think that was helpful a little bit. Obviously, I mean, I read that all, but it helps kind of hone the focus in a little bit from where
I have a feeling. I have like I may be completely wrong. I have a feeling that the essay question is probably going to be on like something having to do with social identity and like prejudice and discrimination. So I think like it may not be, but like if it is, the Robbers Cave experiment would be fantastic to reference. And like I would like if that is like, for example, if that is the type of essay question she's asking, I would draw like comparisons to how the two groups from the camp were able to recategorize and draw that into like an example that you bring yourself to the essay question.
A personal type example.
Yeah, I figured it'd probably be. I also kind of was guessing it'd be on like a prejudice or self-identity, kind of like some social identity, something like that. There was definitely going to be. That to me felt like the most highlighted thing this week, because chapter 7 was really not a very long one we did, and I don't foresee her asking us to do a whole essay on love. I mean,
that's probably going to be more like short answer or multiple choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be completely wrong. She could try to get us to talk about our love, but
probably not.
But I mean, like, also don't like it's not going to hurt you if you it might not be what she's specifically looking for in the essay question, but like if you bring in concepts from like previous chapters that aren't covered in this exam, that can only help.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't just restrict myself to topics from the chapter on the self, even though she said that's what we should focus on for the essay question. I brought in all of the information that I thought was relevant to my analysis of my husband's self.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's a really point. I'm really thank you so much for breaking it down, because
absolutely.
I'm really struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not struggling, but sometimes I feel like I'm not. I do what the thing she tells me, and then I struggle with something else, and then I fix that, then it's something else. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here.
No, I feel you. It can be hard when you don't when you're not grasping like what it is that you're losing points from.
Yes. That's been what the hardest part is. Like, I know the material for the. I mean, I know the material. I understand the material. It's the discussion boards that she's getting me on, or the essay questions. So yeah, that's been the hardest part. But I do appreciate you breaking down how you did your essay and bringing in all those different concepts and really trying to really give your relation to what you think and how this involved this and all of that. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think like the main thing, like again, just the main thing I think she's looking for is like that real understanding and critical thinking about the text and applying that to what you're writing about, and really like synthesis of what we're learning. And like the essay question is there for you to show your mastery of the knowledge.
Right.
Like those other questions, like the multiple choice, the short answer, those are checking like that you've learned definitions. But the essay question is checking that you deeply understand and grasp the concepts.
Right.
That's what you're trying to integrate with the essay question.
Makes more sense.
So I was getting to her one of her questions. I don't remember. It might have been was when she was doing her funny little fill-in ones, and I'm sitting there trying to like, I know the answer. I'm like, wait, is this the right answer? What is the? Am I overthinking this? What's a trick question? What am I supposed to say?
Just don't let yourself waste time on those questions, especially the first time. Like,
well, I had an issue. Her little picture link that was supposed to pop up.
I had the same issue.
It didn't work for me either.
Did you email her about the penalty?
No,
I did. I got the points back.
I got the points back too. I emailed. I was like, no, I'm not losing points for something that was not my fault. That is a technical difficulty. I didn't do anything. All I did was hit it. It froze, and I hit refresh, and it took me back to the beginning. But my answers were, I was freaking out. I was like, it took me back to the beginning, and I about had a panic attack. So I was like, do I have to restart? I have 45 minutes. Do I have to restart? Yeah, it was traumatic. It was traumatizing. So this time, I don't care what kind of funny picture she has linked. I don't care what. I'm not touching it. I don't care.
If it's not worth points, I'm not touching it.
I'm not touching it. I'm passing it. Goodbye. I don't need you. Thanks for the funny thought. I don't need it.
Yeah, that happened with mine. And then like when I was trying to do the self-assessment, I couldn't submit it, and I kept having errors. And I was like, I'm gonna run out of time. I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh.
The self-assessment doesn't have to be done until the test is due.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I didn't do the self-assessment for days after I took the test.
Oh, I thought it was like within the time. And so I was freaking out. I was like, oh no, it's not working. You're good.
I think
I
took the last test. I took the last test on Friday, and then I did the self-assessment on like Tuesday.
Okay. Forgotten. I have to go right to it. So I did the test, finished it, and then I just went ahead and finished that self-assessment so I could be done with it. I didn't want to worry about it anymore. I wanted to just breathe.
That's what I was doing too. And I was like, I can't submit it and I'm gonna forget. I was like, oh no. But I got it. I had to restart my computer like 8 times, and then it worked.
My goodness.
I was like, oh no.
Sometimes these things, just technology, I repel it.
Yeah. You know. Well, I'm gonna go take the test now. So.
Oh, good luck.
Okay.
I'm gonna take it tomorrow.
Oh, good luck to you guys.
Yeah,
gonna
good
take
luck
mine.
to you too. Let me know how you guys do. I hope that this helped. It definitely helped me. So
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you putting this all together.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We'll see you guys
Good
around.
luck, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
See you guys. Good luck.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.